One thing that's actually really concerning for me is when I talk to a lot of companies, especially when they have EAPs or mental health first aiders, peer support groups, is they're not extracting feedback. They're not extracting data. And this is crucial because you have things within your business that, in effect, are key performance indicators. They're KPIs. And they are a little bit of a sneak of what's actually going on within your business. So we take EAPs, for example. The average uptake is about 3%. It's pretty poor. It's very reactive. There's many factors to why that is. Some of it is because of the way that it's not promoted within the business, of what it looks like for people to phone, also the accessibility of it. I had one company where they actually had the cards on the reception desk, and that was it. So you had tradies having to come in and walk into reception in front of someone to try and pick this card up. So it was very confronting for them. But when you're looking at your EAP, obviously it is a confidential service, so you're not going to get names and numbers and stuff like that of who's phoned. But what you can ask for is, I would like data to how many phone calls we've had this month. I'd also like data on the general consensus of what the calls were about with regards to stress, relationships, money, workload. What does that look like? What is that high level reason for them to call you? And, on a scale of 1 to 10, this could be pushing it with them, but on a scale of 1 to 10, how far down the rabbit hole were they? Were they at 3? They were just getting into a little bit of trouble and a little bit of stress with it, or were they a 10? Like they were literally just completely overwhelmed, in tears, upset. They just didn't know what to do. Where were they? Because if you're getting that data every single month and then all of a sudden, the average call rate is, say, 4%, and you've not done any initiatives around promoting it, and then all of a sudden the call rate goes up. What's happened? What's changed? If you've got an average and then all of a sudden that average gets blown out, what has changed? It's a key performance indicator that something could be going on within the business with regards to the mental health of the individuals. So could it be the fact of, okay, well, you've had an increase of 2% phone calls this month and they were related to workload stress. It was related to relationships. Okay, so let's look at, this is why they were phoning. What's happened in the business in the last month? Because then when you can start piecing things together, you can actually start doing things in a proactive way of supporting them right now and listening to them. There are many ways of getting your EAP up with regards to the retention rates. There's things that I do is I set KPIs for the leadership team to phone them, because if they tell me that they don't struggle within a year, I'm gonna be calling them out on that one. But what happens is, if they're calling, at the end of the day, they're paying for the service anyway, because it is a subscription-based service. But if they're then calling and they're hitting the KPI of calling, when they're talking to someone that is struggling, it's like, oh my God, have you rung up the EAP? They're amazing. I just rang them a couple of months ago because I was blah, 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 and they blah, 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 and I felt blah, blah, blah. Give them a call. Versus, oh, have you phoned our EAP? I'll get the number for you. It's somewhere here. Yeah, I've heard that it's quite helpful. Completely different recommendation. They're going to be more hesitant for the second one than they are the first one. So there are a lot of things that you can do to start moving reactive measures that you do have, such as mental health first aiders and EAP, to a more proactive approach. So you're getting people that are looking down the rabbit hole, as I call it, rather than in the rabbit hole. And even with regards to your peer support group, again, we don't want them to name people of who's specifically struggling, unless it's a high-risk individual, but then they should be trained enough to have that conversation of, okay, I'm really concerned about you. Do you mind if I actually bring this up with my manager or the GM or whatever, because I really feel that you need more support around this. And so you're just allowing them, and you're asking for permission as well. So then it's very transparent. You don't lose their trust. So just make sure of what are those lines with regards to your peer support group and them interacting with others. And also, a side note on your peer support group, who's the counsellor's counsellor? So who are looking after the peer support group within the peer support? So for instance, how are they supporting themselves? So if someone's dealing with, if John's dealing with Tim and Tim's struggling, who's John's talking to for him to be able to offload as well, and talk to and feel heard, and also bounce ideas off as well. So always look at that as well. Who's counselling the counsellor is what we call it. So it's about looking after your team, being productive, looking at the things that you have in your business already that you can use as KPIs, that you can really start understanding trends within the business, what's actually going on within the business, and it's another way of creating the noise of using them as indicators to drive the initiatives, incentives, toolbox talks, pre-start meetings, office meetings, whatever that looks like, safety huddles. It drives that information of what's actually going, because now it's relevant to them, because you know what they're struggling with. If you've got any questions, as always, reach out. I'm always here to help. But look at what you're doing in the business. How are you measuring it? And how are you using the data that you are already collecting or already that's available to you to keep moving the business forward? Because we're only as good as the weakest link. So how are we looking after them? Until the next time, as always, take care.